All right, this is James Pelton, and as you can tell, I am not in my office, so I'm continuing. We're on a 5-week road trip of the Western United States, so we've been all over. I miss my office. I miss my normal computer. I miss my normal microphone, all these things. But I'm happy to have the team from Lava Financial here today. So first thing that we need to do, as is if you've been on any of my AMAs, first thing I need you to do is as people are hopping on, I need you to hit the like button. Again, because that is what the YouTube algorithm looks at to see, hey, should we show this to more people? Then we also need you to comment. So I need you to comment what your go ahead and comment what's your favorite project right now. With the markets down, it's probably changed here in the last few months, but what is your favorite project right now? And then as we're going, if you have questions that you'd like to ask the team from Lava Financial, just go ahead and ask those in the comments, and then we will. I'll bring those up when appropriate, kind of when I'm done with my questions, unless your questions are better than mine, but they're probably not. Just kidding. So we got Tyson here already. His favorite project is Bitcoin. So good old Bitcoin. Just going back to that. We got EMP Piston. We have Gareth here. So I see some faces that I've seen in other AMAs. Appreciate you guys always coming and hanging out. We'll give people like another 20 seconds before we get started here. Chameleon is one that I've been hearing a lot about recently. Oh, we've got from Ruru Bergman. Favorite project is Lava. So good. You're in the right place then. Stormy's here. Dex Finance. We got a lot of people hopping on now. So again, as you're coming on, please hit the like button. That helps us out as we get going here. So we'll go ahead and get started. Lava Financial team, thank you guys so much for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself and giving a little bit of your background?
Sure. So I'm Ari. I'm the founder of Lava Financial. I've been a developer for the past 3 years now. I've been in crypto since 2017, since the first major bull run, and I would say beginning in 2020, I started focusing more on Solidity. Typically, I would on my work I'd be writing in mostly Java. But I started, exploring a little bit in Solidity. I developed a few small-scale, NFT projects, nothing huge. This Lava is my first major project, and the reason I initiated development of it is because I saw that the node space. I thought that the idea behind nodes, where you lock up some initial amount in return for a fixed daily passive income, was a good idea. But at the same time, I noticed that the existing models at the time, namely with Ring, happened to be extremely flawed, and even many new ones still carry on some of the those same flaws that led to the downfall of some earlier protocols. But I thought that the actual model itself makes sense. Certain things just had to be tweaked, which is how we came up with the idea for Lava, where the basic idea is essentially, you buy in using our native token, and in return, your nodes get you not only Lava itself, but they get you the actual assets of the investments that we're making. So we build up a treasury, and the treasury initially comes from monthly maintenance fees, as well as a portion of the sales tax. The idea is that we invest a portion of that in seed level projects, and we actually have a partnership with a group named 6K Starter. They're an angel investing group, who have access to these opportunities, which are typically only open to institutional investors and usually accredited investors. So we essentially deploy the capital of our treasury there, and then we right now we distribute those actual tokens back to holders. So unlike other projects where the return is where they're using their treasury to make money, and then using the money they've made for buybacks just to boost their native token, the idea here is to give people returns in the form of the actual investments that we're making, because ultimately having a model reliant on a native token is never going to be sustainable, especially when people are selling. People are taking profits in the same token that they need to buy in order to create those nodes. So the idea behind Lava is to phase that out by I guess by creating almost like an index of all the investments that um, made by a treasury, and then essentially you take each user's nodes and node, depending on the tier, entitles them to a percentage of the actual revenue generated by the treasury, so they can essentially claim a portion of each investment that we make based on the amount they're entitled to. And again, that's determined by how many nodes they have, what tier, in relation to the total supply of nodes. And the idea is to eventually build this up enough where the need for lava is phased out, entirely. And that's why really right now the project is split up into 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 is where we're essentially relying on the Ponzonomic model. People need to buy lava in order to create their nodes, and then in order to take profit they also need to sell lava. And that model, I don't think I don't think that model really has any chance of being sustainable in the long run, which is where phase 3 comes in. And phase 3 essentially allows users to actually claim the underlying investments that we're making. So one of the investments that we're making is in a project called the Standard. That's a stablecoin project. So once vesting actually kicks in for us, users will be able to claim the portion that they're entitled to directly from the front end. So they'll begin to be able to take profits in the actual investments that we're making. And then as these scale up, the actual lava component of the rewards will begin to be phased out. And ultimately, these treasury investments will make up a greater share of what people are receiving as their rewards. And this is really where the sustainability comes in. And then another thing that we're doing to really drive home like sustainability, and again, this really only applies to phase 1, is we have this concept called true ROI. What true ROI is it essentially allows users to create once a user creates their node, it basically takes a snapshot of the dollar value of the node at the time at which it was created, and it guarantees them that they'll get that return back. And then once they've actually made the return by claiming and selling their lava, essentially the reward gets the reward/emissions rate gets cut by 50% for that user for that node. So it works on a per node basis. But yeah, I know I got into a little tangent there. I know you asked for my background, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah, sometimes if you've got things that you got to say, then that's feel free to say them.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So that's Ari, and I do just want to verify you guys are a docs team. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're publicly doxed. Maybe like
I'll share the web.
So I'm not gonna say it's a full docs because obviously our last names aren't out there, but it is a public docs. Our pictures and our names are publicly available on our website. And yeah, I mean, and originally I actually had my LinkedIn and my Twitter up, but some of our other team members didn't feel comfortable with that, and we wanted everyone to be on an equal footing. So I ended up removing my link to my LinkedIn account. But yeah. But if you actually look at like the archive.org for the website, you'll see the original one had, all my links.
Okay, very cool. And then Apple Juice and Larry, would you like to introduce yourself also to the audience?
Yeah, sure. I'll go next. I'm Apple Juice. Everyone calls me Juice. Yeah, I'm fairly new to crypto, I guess, compared to some others. I've got in maybe about 2 years ago. Recently I got into DeFi, I guess about a year or so ago. And my background is in comp sci. And I stumbled upon Lava. I think it was back in November or December. Just kind of going through, a bunch of different projects. The node projects were exploding around that time. And I remember finding, I found Lava and I was like, wow, this is a really cool idea. And, I just started as a moderator and just kind of kept like getting involved. And, it's been a blast working on it since. So yeah, I mean, I don't have as much to say, I guess, as Ari did. He kind of covered the basis of the project, but yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And what about you, Larry?
Okay, so I'm Larry. I'm the data analyst and I guess strategic advisor, helping with the general direction of the project. I've got a background in data analysis with finance companies and marketing. I built finance companies in the sort of fiat world, I guess, from the ground up. So I have a lot of business experience in general. Crypto, yeah, similar to Juice, I guess. Been in crypto for about 2 or 3 years, DeFi around a year or so. I found Lava back in December, but didn't really sort of become active in the community till about, I guess, February-ish. And yeah, the guys sort of invited me to join the team about 4 to 6 weeks ago, roughly. So yeah, it's been a blast. It's a really exciting project. You know, it sounds a lot different. When I came across it, it sounded a lot different to the other sort of node protocols out there. The sustainability aspect obviously really interested me, yeah, really excited for what's to come.
Awesome. And let's go ahead. So you talked about 3 phases. So I'm kind of an engineer brain, like one thing at a time. I have a hard time with multitasking. Can you start with just phase 1, where we're at now, and explain how phase 1 works?
Yeah, so phase 1 is essentially the bootstrapping phase that allows us to build our treasury to actually make the private investments, which we're making now. And the way that it operates is pretty similar to the classic node model, where essentially users can buy one of 3 tiers of nodes using a fixed amount of our native token Lava, and then they received a fixed rate daily, depending on the tier. And once they've broken even on a dollar cost basis, the rate itself gets reduced by 50%. And so that's really, that's the whole idea of phase 1. So phase 1 was the bootstrapping and just getting the project off the ground. Because if you don't have the actual capital to make the investments, then you can't really get to the subsequent phases. So phase 2 is where we actually deploy the capital in the treasury. And right now that's around a couple $100,000. And essentially we invest it in a couple ways. The first is in seed level investments, and that's done through 6K Starter, which is deal flow, usually seed level rounds, in different promising projects. So we've been, coordinating them with them, letting them know, the types of things that we're interested. Right now, we're focusing mainly on, and I guess also layer 2s and things like roll-ups or technologies that focus on that. And thus far, we've made 2 private investments. The first was in the Standard, which is a stable coin, which is an over-collateralized stable coin, pretty similar to DAI, and they're actually focusing on allowing people to create their own stable coins. They're actually first releasing a Euro-backed stable coin as their first one. And yeah, I mean, the way it works is pretty interesting. It's honestly pretty similar to DAI. Usually there's a minimum collateral ratio of like 120% in order to actually, mint their stable coins. And our second investment is in Partisia, which is a pretty promising layer 1. They've yet to launch yet, but they're focused on multi-platform computing. So multiple parties can operate on the same data securely, and I think what they're doing is pretty promising. The second area of focus when it comes to deploying our treasury is what we've termed as sister projects. Now, these are essentially projects that we seed with our own money. We establish, we build a team of competent developers to actually get the idea up and running and off the ground, and then we put management in place to actually run these projects completely independent from Lava itself. So they're responsible for their own finances, their own marketing. They have their own communities, their own social media. So essentially, we're just acting as you can think of us as like an accelerator, or almost like a seed investor, but these are also projects that we're initiating, if that makes sense. And currently, the first the first sister project is termed Project Athena, and what it essentially is it's a DeFi automation platform as well as unified dashboard. So essentially, the way that it works is it'll allow. It's kind of like if this then that, where essentially you have these primitive DeFi building blocks, swapping, adding liquidity, staking, bridging, all the basic primitives, and all the I guess steps that you'd have to do manually. You'd be able to string together to create these complex automations that other users would then be able to deploy on their own, and they would be able to run, automatically based on certain triggers, or just, based on time. So for instance, if you're, in a node project and you happen to, claim every day, and then let's say you take that money and then you immediately, buy, let's say, Phantom with it. So essentially what this would be able to do is it would be able to, every 24 hours, it would be based on this time-based trigger, based on when you first initiated the strategy, it would automatically call the methods using the ABI, assuming the ABI is available for the actual contracts for that particular node project. It would claim your tokens. It would then send them to the router for whatever exchange you're using, sell them, and then it would either convert them directly to Phantom if the chain is Phantom, or if not, it would basically be calling one of the bridge contracts. So multi-chain is the one that we're looking to include first. Multichain.xyz, formerly known as AnySwap, and then it would bridge it to the target chain, and then it would swap it to Phantom. And again, like the possibilities are pretty limitless here. You can anything that you would typically have to do manually, especially if it's like a complex DeFi strategy, you'd be able to automate here just using these building blocks. And so that's one part of Athena. Then the other part is the actual dashboard, where you can, which works kind of similar to DBank, or I think 8board is the name, where you can essentially view all your positions, in a unified place, and manage all your positions from there centrally. And then the third component of Project Athena is actually offering API access to our automation system to other projects, so that they can essentially trigger workflows based on certain events that happened, according to triggers that they happen to specify. And what you can do a lot of cool things here. If like a project wanted, they could essentially build their own DeFi app, where they have their own, let's say they wanted to, I don't know, if they wanted to implement buybacks, for instance, and they wanted to do it, if they wanted to automate that process, they'd essentially be able to just call our API, which would then interact with Block Builder, which is the DeFi automation builder that I was describing to you, and they would basically be able to run that strategy automatically based on a schedule that they define, and they can do a lot more. Like they don't necessarily have to use the API just for calling actually calling contract methods. They can also use it just to just to simply pull information to just display on their own dashboard, whether that's for internal use or just to display to users on their dApp. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done there, and I'm pretty excited about it, because like it brings a lot more composability to DeFi, and it should make it a lot easier for people to manage a lot of the a lot of their positions and strategies in a more unified manner. So that's just one sister project, and I can go into the second one if you'd like. I'll let you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, before that, can you talk about how? So does Athena collect revenue, and then how does that revenue help Lava investors?
Sure. So essentially the way that we envision it working is that anytime users initiate a strategy, we'll be taking a small percentage of the capital being used, and it'll be very small. It'll probably be like 0.05% of whatever they're initially putting up when they're running their strategy. and 20, and then essentially 20 to 30% of that of the revenue collected will go back to Lava's treasury in the form of a royalty, essentially, and then the remaining amount will then be reinvested back into the project, because again, they have to be responsible for their, for managing their own finances, and they have, I'm assuming, these projects will have their own operational expenses and overhead that they sort of have to cover. And then another thing that we've considered doing is, and I haven't really mentioned this yet, is so with our block builder feature, basically we want to integrate a social component to it, where basically where a user has a feed and their recommended strategy automations or blocks created by other users that they can then use. So one thing that we thought of is, if we want to bring more exposure to new projects, we can essentially allow for sponsored strategies, where basically projects, might pay Athena a nominal fee in order to have their strategies related to their project displayed on the homepage or feed of the app for a user. But yeah, I mean, that's really the plan for now. So for our sister.
Oh no! I hope Ari's okay.
Are you okay over there, man?
Sounds like he got hit by a train.
he just went silent. You all right?
All right. Yeah, were you talking on the tracks? That's kind of what it sounded like. Well, I hope he's okay. So maybe while we're waiting for Ari, maybe one of the other two, Apple Juice or Larry. Are you okay, Ari?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm sitting on top of a freight car right now. I feel like one of the pioneers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
What I was saying is, the way the sister projects will work is essentially, we'll be seeding them, and then we'll be taking back a percentage of the revenue, just as a perpetual cash royalty going forward, because you still want these projects to reinvest enough of their money to reinvest, the revenue that they're making into themselves, in order to grow and in order to add new features and bring additional, people on board when necessary. So yeah, like the goal is that the idea isn't to, that Lava will be taking 100% of the money, but it will be that we'll, be seeding them enough and, getting the, I guess the right people together just to get the actual projects off the ground. And then after that point, these projects will, like I said, they'll be run independently, and they'll be responsible for managing their own finances. So if these projects decide to raise additional money, then that's certainly an option, whether that's through a private sale with VCs, or with just members from the community. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to finances, like I said, it's because it's based on the needs of the project, and it's up to them, and it's up to them to decide what they need. Like the way it'll work will operate on a case-by-case basis, just depending on what the project's particular needs are. So
Okay, and then is Athena, is it up and running, or is that launching soon?
no, so we're actually building. We're in the process of building it right now. We just put out a Medium article about it. So so one of the developers who works with us, Bitcoin Bart, he's developed the API that's actually used in Athena, but right now we're focused on building the actual front end and more of the infrastructure for the actual block builder, which is the automation tool that I was describing. But yeah, we expect to at least have probably a demo up by the end of this month, and then a minimum viable product, or I guess a beta that other users could actually play around with within the next 1.5 to 2 months.
Okay, very cool. Okay, and I do want to talk about those other projects, but before we get into that, can you talk about so you guys have been launched now for a few weeks. Can you talk about how the launch went? And then, this has kind of been probably the worst time to launch a project, just with the way the market's been. So can you talk about how that's gone, and where you see the Lava token at now, and then how you think these sister projects might, kind of help?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we launched at a pretty inopportune time. Right when we launched, the market pretty much crashed. I think like 30 or 40%. I don't know the exact amount, but it wasn't a great time. But we had planned to launch then, regardless of what the market conditions were. So we just moved forward, stuck to the plan, and yeah. Um, so as for where we are currently, I would say that because a lot of the node hype really died down quite a bit, just because a lot of them failed somewhat spectacularly, whether through through I don't know if malfeasance is the right word, or just, I guess, stupidness on the part of devs. I know, like, I'm not going to name names, but there are certain projects like where just some, like the dev basically screwed them. That's like one of the common things that you hear. And again, I don't know what actually goes on behind the scenes, but I feel like what's happened with certain projects, especially where people have lost thousands of dollars, is there's almost no confidence in the node space right now, and especially for projects that have already launched, because they're looking at the charts now, and even for AVEX, which just a little over a month ago was like at $60 or $70, it's almost at $20 now. So when you look at us, we're a much smaller scale project. We're not a blue chip by any means, and you see us dumping, you're going to be very hesitant, and you're not likely to actually buy in, because the idea hasn't been proven yet. And I think this is an issue that all smaller scale projects currently are facing, and probably will be facing in the near term, where it's people are now that people aren't really necessarily desperate for alpha, they're going to be a lot more conservative and hesitant to actually invest in these projects, especially if what they're doing hasn't really been proven before, or the actual project hasn't been around and isn't established in the way that some of these other tokens are. But even the more established projects like Bitcoin and Ethereum are down 60-70% from their all-time highs. But yeah, so I mean, it's I will be the first to admit that it's been difficult to constantly bring in new buyers. That's even with the marketing that we have in place, which is mostly focused on Twitter and YouTube videos at the moment. Like, you will see new buys. Usually there's like 1 or 2 new buys a day, but you're not seeing the same numbers that you were several months ago, like in January and December, when nodes were really hot, so to speak. So the idea for us right now is just to continue to build, to focus on the actual sister projects, to generate value for for our existing node holders, and to continue making our private investments. And then eventually the idea is like to phase out lava entirely, so that the project is sustainable in the sense that it doesn't rely on a native token and new buyers constantly paying off the old holders or old buyers by having to pump the price, so to speak. With the model that we intend to transition to, there won't be a native token that users depend on for the rewards, because they'll be receiving the actual investments that we're making. And I am pretty confident that when we fully transition to this, especially when we get to phase 3, when lava is phased out, people will be a lot more keen to invest, especially because there really isn't the risk of of a native token there, and of a typical Ponzi-nomic style node project. And I think one way to think of phase 3 is you can think of it almost as like a perpetual, almost like a venture pass, where basically, or like you could think of it as almost like a modified version of like a launch pad, or a fair version of the launch pad, where rather than having to buy some token and then stake it, and then maybe getting the chance to receive an allocation based on a lottery, basically just by having a node, you're guaranteed a percentage of the actual private investments that we're making in proportion to the nodes that you have. So unlike the lottery system, which is pretty much just based on chance and favors whales, who are able to purchase a large amount of the token to stake to participate in the lottery. Users of all sizes, or users like no matter what how much they are willing to contribute, they can basically receive a guaranteed allocation just based on the number of nodes that they had. And because the lowest tier node right now is 100 lava, which is $60, right now it's the barrier to entry is pretty low. But I don't know how many people are aware of the fact that they're guaranteed the actual allocation in these private investments. I think most people, typically come across us and just view us as, just another node project. And even a lot of people in our community don't really fully read through the white paper. So I think a lot of people, still have the impression that, yeah, it's just a typical Ponzi-nomic node project. They look at the chart and, like, again, all charts are dumping, and then they, they sort of brush it off. But yeah, what we're doing is essentially, you can think of it as a fixed cost version of the Launchpad style system.
I was going to ask, are you able to be, so I think for people who are thinking about investing now, because you want phase one investors still, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so for people who are thinking to invest now, can you maybe be a little bit more specific about like what kind of return? Because since the token price has kind of been going down a bit, what would you say to reassure someone, hey, if you invest in a node now, you're going to be okay going forward?
You can buy a single node, which is, there's a one-time cost, and there is a nominal there is a monthly maintenance fee for the lowest tier node, and that's right now that's like $3. But you can buy a single tier 1 node, and that would guarantee you an allocation of every single private investment that we make in these in these seed level investments that we're making. And unlike the Launchpad system, which uses a lottery, and which usually is a later round where the actual token where the token value is higher than some of the earlier rounds, you're getting in at the earliest time. And like I said before, the most important thing is that it's a single fixed cost. You're paying once for your node, and then you're guaranteed an allocation of all the private investments we make perpetually. So unlike the Launchpad system, which doesn't guarantee you an allocation, you're guaranteed an allocation in the investments that we're making. And one of the other things that we're doing is we're also basically, so we have NFTs. Those act as boosters. They provide an actual percentage boost on the actual rewards people are receiving. But one other thing that we're doing with them is we're also treating them as as venture pass NFTs as well. We're essentially, rather than just receiving the guaranteed allocation, which is based on the number of nodes that you have relative to the total supply of nodes, you're basically able to invest even more than that, even more than the amount that you're entitled to, up to a certain amount. So so if you wanted to, typically, if you were very bullish about one of the projects that we were investing in, basically just by holding one of these NFTs, and there's only 170 of them, you would be able to purchase any amount up to a specific cap on that tier of NFTs. So we're still fleshing out the numbers for the NFTs, but we're thinking that the highest tier would probably be around $3 to $5 grand. The middle tier would probably be around 1.5 to 2, and the lowest tier would be 1,000. And basically, the way it would work is people would be able to invest up to the cap on top of what they're already receiving every time we make one of our private investments.
Okay, very cool. So it sounds like if people want to get involved, then the sister projects are going to be what really is where their money is made back. Do you want to go ahead and talk about? We talked about one. Do you want to go ahead and talk about any of the other sister projects, or maybe some that you're most excited about? Are you still there?
Did we lose him?
I wasn't sure if you lost me or if we lost him. Maybe the train. Hopefully, he didn't fall off the train or something.
Yeah,
Did you say
maybe
he was on top of the freight car?
Yeah, I think his ride on top of the freight car may have come to a tragic end.
Oh no! Oh, he says he's frozen. Wait,
Can you hear me?
Ari, are you there?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Bad connection. Sorry. What was your question again?
I was going to see. It sounds like that the sister projects are going to be, the revenue that those bring in is kind of be where people get most of their ROI from. Do you want to go ahead and talk about? You talked about the first one. Do you want to talk about any of the other sister projects?
Yeah. Sure. I can talk about the other one. The other one is called Prism, and what it essentially is it it's basically allows for farming with zero impermanent loss, and basically it's essentially a cross-chain farm where people will pair their native layer one assets, like AVAX, for instance, with the wrap version of that asset on other chains. So if you're a holder and you're bullish on, AVAX long term, you'd essentially be able to deposit it into this farm where we pair it with the wrap version on these other chains, and then you'd be receiving the the reward token there. And then basically, this sort of model incentivizes deep liquidity to be built across chains. So we would have an actual bridge with a swap function or whatever with swapping enabled, and then we would be taking a percentage per transaction, similar to the way other bridges work.
Okay, very cool. So yeah, so that'll be a good revenue stream through kind of those bridging things. So that sounds interesting. Are there any other sister projects that you kind of want to talk about, or things that are on the horizon?
So I have like a couple of other ideas, but they aren't really as fully fleshed out. But I'm open to to sharing them a bit more. I mean, one of the ideas that I had was a derivatives platform, because I know like the I don't know if people like realize, but like there aren't actually that many decentralized derivative and futures platforms. Like there's GMX and a couple of other ones, but the services that they provide are pretty limited compared to actual centralized exchanges. But I think taking that model, which is kind of what GMX does, and treating it like a central order book and offering futures and maybe other more exotic derivatives, but also with a focus on operating across multiple chains. I think there's potentially a lot of opportunity there, because I know that a lot of people, especially people based in the U.S., would love to have something like that. But it's just that a lot of these exchanges, especially recently, have begun to KYC and make it a lot more restrictive, and it's become a lot more inaccessible to actually access these products. So if there were an alternative, comparable product that were decentralized and operated permissionlessly, like the way that GMX does, I think that they would see a lot of usage, and people would probably use them for more than just speculating. You could also use them like to manage risk. If you're a holder and you want to sell options on let's say, so if you hold AVAX and you're able to sell options on them to just manage some of your downside risk, I think a lot of people would probably do that. But right now, people don't really have a lot of options people don't really have that many choices when it comes to managing their positions with some of these more with derivatives and I guess some of these more complex financial products, because right now they're behind the closed door of centralized exchanges for the most part. But I'm fascinated by what GMX has been able to do. And if you actually look at their stats page, they in probably in under like 6 months they've been able to generate like 60 or 70 million in fees alone. That's not volume. That's just fees alone. They've had several billion of volume, but set like 60 or 70 million in fees just year to date. So I think if you can sort of I guess take inspiration from what they're doing, but expand it to some other products, namely, I was thinking options, and maybe swap agreements. I don't know how familiar people are with those, but you can essentially offer people the return, for.
Oh, hit the train again. Oh, too bad he was on a roll. So while we're waiting, there he is. While we're waiting for Ari to come back, do one of the other two, do you want to, I know a common question is, can you explain the different lava tokens? I think there's some confusion about that. Let me, just like when you go in the DApp, there's lava, P lava, A lava, and G lava. Can you talk about how those all work together?
Sorry, I think I cut out there. What were you saying?
Yeah, we missed you for a little bit. I was asking about the different lava tokens and what they mean when there's lava, P lava, A lava, and G lava.
So lava
is all work together.
So P lava is the pre-sale token that we sold, and it was only redeemed, and it was it could only be used to create nodes. A lava was another pre-sale token, and A lava was able to be redeemed for lava itself. And lava is the actual main token of the protocol. G lava is our governance token. Every time someone creates a node, they're automatically airdrop G lava in proportion to the node tier that they've created, and that's used to vote on snapshot.org, and it's just based on the balance of G lava that you have that determines your weight.
Okay, so basically, if people want to get involved, they just need to buy the lava token. Is that correct? It's on the Avalanche network?
Yes, but if they want to participate in governance decisions, they would have to create a node, because it's only when they create a node that they actually receive an airdrop of G lava, which is used for governance.
Okay, all right. So they need to buy these tokens, either 100, 200, or 500, and then get a node. And then if they want to be in on like the sister projects, do they need to also buy a node? Is the node kind of the ticket into that?
So I just want to be clear, like the sister projects are the projects that we're seeding and that they're based on our ideas. We're funding them and then spinning them off essentially as their own independent projects. That's separate from the private investments. All node holders will essentially receive the actual private investments that we're making. So for instance, we invested in the standard. Node holders will be receiving the standard tokens once the actual lockup period ends and the vesting begins to kick in. Users will be able to claim their share of the of the project that we invested in directly from the dashboard. So the sister projects are essentially, the way that they'll work is a little different. Essentially, they'll generate revenue, and that revenue will go, like I said before, a percentage of that revenue will.
He can do it.
We'll go.
You can do it. You got it, Ari. You got it. So close.
Back to.
I will say,
a percentage of the revenue will go back to the holders, via the treasury. I think is what he's trying to say.
Okay, I feel his pain. I've been traveling around, and so I have Airbnb and hotel internet everywhere I go.
Oh yeah, it's tough.
It is painful. Yeah. So I'm happy when I find a hotel. I've been calling hotels like, hey, what's your Mbps on your internet? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I'm only staying there if it's a certain level.
Yeah. If you find one that has the answer to that, that's the golden ticket.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking for. Awesome. Well, hey, this is super cool. This opens up a lot. Can you talk a little bit more, maybe Apple Juice or Larry, while we're waiting for Ari? Do you want to talk a little bit more? I think we have a good picture of what phase 1 is. It's these nodes building up the treasury, and phase 2. Can you talk a little bit more about phase 3 and how that works?
Yeah. So the idea is, for phase 3 is to eventually get to a point where we're able to kind of start to phase out the lava token and bring, or not entirely phase out, but where the majority of the the node payouts are done in nLava, which is oh no, we lost Ari.
I'm back.
But yeah, so that's the idea, is that by that phase 3 point, the idea is to kind of be beyond the Ponzi-nomic model where we have our sister projects that are generating their own revenue. We have the private investments, which are, ideally down the road generating their own returns. And we're able to pay out investors with, actual revenue that we're generating instead of just relying on, the new investors coming in. So that's kind of the end goal for the project, I would say.
Okay, very cool. Ari, anything you want to add to that?
No, so I just wanted to apologize again. Sorry for the choppy internet connection. I cut out. Did you have any other questions about the sister projects, or do you want clarification or anything when I cut out the last time, or?
No, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on things. Does anybody in the audience, do you guys have questions that you want to ask? I guess I forgot to be looking. I'm sure you did. Sometimes I forget that there's an audience. I get caught up. I'm so engrossed in our conversation. Some of these we answered already too. So if I don't bring up one of your questions, feel free to watch the replay because it probably means that they already answered it. Another possibility is I don't understand your question and then I don't usually ask it. So if you could rephrase it. Let's see, here's one. How many nodes or tokens do we need to invest before we can benefit from the return on investment? Is just one node?
Just one node. And again, so the way it works is everyone, as long as you own at least one node, you'll be receiving the actual investments that we're making, and that'll essentially be able to claim them from the dashboard. So it'll be kind of like airdrops. But again, the amount that you receive is dependent on which tier of node that you have. So if you have the lower tier nodes, then your allocation of a given investment will be smaller than if you were to have, the tier 3. And again, that one thing that does is it encourages, new buyers to potentially consider buying the higher tier nodes, but it also incentivizes compounding, because if you know that you're more likely that, that the payoff or return for you will be greater because you're receiving a larger amount of tokens, you're more likely to compound to ensure that you have the higher tier.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And then his second question is, can we participate with fiat money on the lottery?
So initially, the entries to the lottery will be in lava, and that's mainly just to increase the buy pressure that we're seeing and to get some positive price appreciation on the chart. But eventually, once we're confident that the price is stabilized more and the market conditions are less volatile or shaky, we're definitely open to selling tickets in fiat. I don't know if you mean actual fiat, like spending dollars, but one possibility that we've actually looked into before is using something called Ramp, where you can essentially just use your credit card to purchase crypto on the platform, and they have a convenient SDK, software development kit that projects can use to integrate that onto their dApps. But yeah, at first it'll only be available in tickets will have to be purchased in lava. But we're certainly open to the possibility of offering the ability for users to buy in fiat down the line.
Okay, and then he after he has other questions, can we sell other NFTs on your marketplace?
I'm not sure. What's the second part? In the midst of the ugly marketplace?
I think it's just ugly market. What are you doing to keep up with the volume of the tokens? So I think just
got it.
Price is the market's bad.
Markets in general. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Okay. I thought he was talking about aesthetics, so I was confused for a sec. So our NFT marketplace will be an internal marketplace. It'll only be for the NFTs that are used by our projects. So it's not it won't be a third party marketplace where you can just go ahead and list anything, but it'll be solely focused on the actual booster NFTs that we have. And again, these are like I said before, they're pretty limited. There's only 140 of them remaining. We auction.
I'm really
So,
curious as to
yeah, I've been
What
on
was that,
journey
man?
today.
I've been on the road. I'm at a Dunkin' right now.
Okay, I was gonna say
Yeah.
your life sounds way more interesting
Yeah.
than mine does.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always moving. But yeah, the NFT marketplace will be for internal use. It'll just be for the actual booster NFTs.
Okay, that's funny. I just want to. Your life sounds really interesting. Okay, very cool. Then Ricardo, maybe I can kind of answer this, but congratulations on the amazing design of the protocol, and that is one of the pluses. Is your design does look really good. Can I ask what are the similarities with, for example, polar nodes? And so, just the way I would answer that is kind of all these node projects are kind of just they're venture capital, so they're just a way to raise money in order to invest in something else. Okay, so none of these node projects are supposed to be like the end all. In fact, I don't even like, they say lifetime rewards. That's kind of silly, actually, to say without any kind of revenue stream. So these, and that's one thing I like about Lava is you guys are very upfront about, hey, this is not designed to be like the end of what we're doing is these nodes that you get lifetime rewards, but you lower after ROI and you're building other things to shoot for some revenue streams. And Polar's doing that also. So Polar's building some things to try to get some revenue also. So I hope that helps, Ricardo. All right. Well, hey, this was very helpful for me. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding. Is there anything else anything on the roadmap that you guys are really excited about, or anything else that you really want to get across, either to your audience or to potential investors who might be watching?
One thing that we didn't mention is that we actually have a couple of features coming to the platform pretty soon. We have Fusion, where essentially users will be able to take their smaller tier nodes and combine them into the higher tiers. Now they won't be able to do this just whenever they please, but the way it'll work is it'll be kind of gamified, and the way I envision is people have to merge the lower tier nodes into the higher tiers to build up to them. And generally there will be a cooldown period for how often they can actually fuse, but that's one thing that I'm looking forward to. And then we also have a referral system that we're currently exploring, that we're looking into. We're just figuring out the best way to approach it, but that I'm pretty excited about that, because like I know those tend to pick up traction pretty well, and you could see that with miners and projects like Drip, which I think has been going strong for over a year now.
Yeah, I've never heard of Drip. No,
Drip
just kidding. Yeah, it's my biggest holding. So yes, I am.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the referral system could be like could I guess could be a strong impetus for community-led marketing, because people are more incentivized to share the actual project with other communities that they're in and with their friends. So that's something that we're currently ironing out, and we'd like to have that rolled out hopefully by the end of the month or beginning of next month. And
okay, very cool. Yeah, I love referral programs, so I definitely would be interested.
So
in that.
referral programs, like they're a little iffy, because like a lot of times like what'll happen is like if you have a referral program, then sometimes you might have people with a big audience shilling it because they're getting a benefit, especially if they're getting a percentage of each buy from users who use their link. So we might put some caps on there to make it more fair, and we also don't want to have a referral program that negatively affects the price of Lava for existing holders. So we're considering possibly having the referral program essentially be for a share of the actual investments that we're making rather than Lava itself. But we're still on the fence about that, and that still has to be ironed out. But yeah, we're excited about that as well.
Okay, very cool. And then any last things that you would say to potential investors? We have people watching who are kind of on the fence. They look at the price action and the market, and they're like, I don't know if I'll see ROI.
I would say this, do your research, interact with the community, always, ask as many questions as you can. pick and prod. If you have actual questions, that then ask. Like, if you have accusations to make, that's fine. Like, that's all projects have that. But generally, like, you have to be willing to you have to have like an end goal in mind. Like, if you have an issue with what a project is doing, generally you should have some sort of idea in mind of what you'd like to see them do differently, right? So always ask questions, give constructive feedback when you can. And yeah, like I said, always do your own research.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. And just my take, again, too, is I really appreciate that you guys as a team have not just abandoned ship, like what I've seen with several projects, which I won't name, but the markets have been rough. And so, the token's been down, and some projects just kind of abandon ship. They're like, oh, this isn't going to work. It's too hard or whatever. So I appreciate that you guys are still around. You're still doing AMAs. You're still in the Discord responding to things. Someone commented a little bit. I've been in the Discord since early on. Team is really active and community is really great. So I think that that shows a lot of your character, just being willing to kind of persevere through this. So
absolutely,
yeah, I'm excited to see how the sister projects work, and hopefully some of that revenue can start coming in, and then people, once people start to see, hey, there's some ROI here, then I think investments will come in.
What's tough is that, like, I think people have like the conception that people are very optimistic when it comes to timelines, but I think the reality is things take a lot longer than expected. And even when it comes for a team, you have these projections of this will take this long. But I think the important thing to remember is that there are always things never work out perfectly the first time, but as long as you're building, constantly iterating and taking feedback and actually pushing things out, then I think at the end of the day that's the most important thing. Because for any project in DeFi, and really for any venture in life, you can't really do this. You can't do the same thing and expect the same old results that you've always seen. You constantly have to be, reinventing yourself and, doing new things, and really, willing to change in order to actually, ultimately be as successful as you can. With that being said, I appreciate you having myself and the team on, and I look forward to maybe connecting again sometime in the future, maybe for one of our sister projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know. Would love to have you back too, and just kind of get an update on the project even, and kind of see how the sister projects are working out. So, thank you guys. And I want to also too give props to the Fire team, because I've been difficult with getting an AMA together. I know that they've been waiting, and I've just been difficult in dealing with them. So I appreciate their patience and their willingness to come on and do this. So thank you guys very much. And thank you always, audience, for coming and watching. As I always say, we can't do AMAs unless people come and watch. They'd be very lame if there was no viewers. So appreciate you guys coming on and asking good questions. If you do have more questions, I put a link to the Discord, but yeah, hop in their Discord. The team would love to answer your questions and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, please.
Awesome. Well, Apple Juice, Larry, Ari, appreciate you guys, and keep up the good work, and just keep building through the bear market. There's
That's
not
right,
much else
man.
you can do, is build, and then let your community know what you're doing, and that's about all you can do.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Dave.
Hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
All right.
You as well. Thanks.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.